peace in that moment, humans are still human. You'll never be successful if you're not happy with yourself. Actually, you could be extremely successful and not be happy with yourself. You could be a multimillionaire and not be happy with yourself. You can inherit a billionaire's empire and not be happy with yourself. You could have gone down a path that was set for you by your ancestors and fulfilled the roles that they designed for you and not be happy with yourself. Just to be serious, like, yes, you can be extremely successful and miserable. Okay. Now, you cannot be successfully happy in your own life if you don't start by making ways to be happy with yourself. That's true. You have to be happy with yourself and happy with your decisions. And you have to be able to make the kind of decisions that will positively impact the direction you would like to go in life, whether you get there or not. You do not want to make impulsive decisions that will obstruct the ability to be successful with whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. But success and happiness are not connected together. You can be happy and homeless or successful and miserable. Okay. But this ability to modify yourself so that you're not impacted by emotional manipulation is called uh, the economy of control. Yeah, the economy of control. I'm gonna put it in the comment section so that y'all don't sit over here and start making dick jokes. It's the economy of control, right? Now, this principle divides the world into two simple categories: things that are within our control and things that are not inside of our control. Well, yeah, this is the fundamentally designed as coping skills. Yes, sir, that is correct. That is correct. The Stoics taught that our judgments, our choices, our values, and our responses are the only things truly up to us. Everything else, the things that other people do, their opinions, their moods, their actions, their external events, the past that is long gone, is completely outside of our control. Emotional suffering, they argued, doesn't come from what other people do. It comes from our judgment about what they do. It happens when we desperately try to control what we can't, or when we neglect to master what we can control. A manipulator doesn't have a direct line to your feelings. They can't just force you to feel guilty, afraid, or inadequate. Instead, they target your judgment. They whisper suggestions and create scenarios designed to make you judge yourself harshly, to believe your worth is conditional, or to feel responsible for their happiness. Now, they offer you a distorted lens, and you, with your suffering, begins the moment that you agree to look through the lens they gave you. The secret to stopping emotional manipulation then isn't to get into a battle of wills with the manipulator. It's to win the war inside your own mind. It's the practice of reclaiming your power of judgment. When you understand this, you realize that their attempts to pull your strings are just that, attempts. The strings are connected to your own judgments, and you alone hold the power to cut them. Now, this is the foundation of your fortress. So, if you find this empowering and you want to join a community of dedicated individuals that are building inner strength, take a moment, I want you guys to like the show and stay with everything we're about to give you guys because your support to help spread this timeless wisdom to others who might need it is going to be very, very important. Let's see if Michael's got a good one. Induced paranoia. I actually think we might be talking about that today. But yes, induced paranoia is something that can occur from manipulation. People make you doubt yourself, people make you doubt others. If somebody comes and whispers in your ear negative things about your partner, you'll start second guessing your partner. But then, if you were to have that blind faith about your partner, you would feel a fool when what the other person said turns out to be true. If you've ever been betrayed by a partner that you've trusted before, you're never going to be 100% confident that your partner will never betray you. So all it takes is for somebody else to provide you with shades of the past, again, outside of your control, to lead you to believe that you're in yet another situation where your partner is betraying you, and you will then betray your partner out of induced paranoia. Yeah, that happens. That's why police do divide and conquer in police interrogations. Because if they convince one person that the other person snitched, the person that does not have faith in the rest of the group is going to be the first person to break. And as soon as that person breaks on record, they get there and play that confession to the other people in the room, and then they start snitching on one another. And now everybody then told on everybody, and now everybody's taking the full step. The one person that maintains the control of their own feelings might not say anything, but that person will get the full sentence because everybody else snitched. When, ironically, the only reason why they're interrogating everybody after they caught them is because they don't have enough evidence to convict. Because if they had enough evidence to convict, you'd be in jail, not in the interrogation room. Completely different dynamic. Now, let's get into the 10 Stoic secrets that will teach you how to build that fortress stone by stone. The first and most fundamental secret is that one we just introduced, which is to deeply, practically, and relentlessly master the economy of control. And this isn't just intellectual concepts, it's a daily operating system for your mind. Emotional manipulators thrive in the fog of misplaced responsibilities. Their entire game depends on you believing that you're responsible for their feelings and that they're responsible for your sense of worth. The economy of control cuts through this fog like a searchlight. So let's make this concrete. A loved one says, if you really cared about me, you wouldn't spend so much time with on your work, right? Now, the emotional bait is laid out here. They're trying to force a connection between your actions, which is working, and their feelings being uncared for. They're trying to make you judge your own ambition as a form of neglect, right? An untrained mind independently picks this burden up. That mind would think they feel bad and I'm the cause. To be a good person, I have to change my actions to fix their feelings. In that moment, you're caught, right? They got you on the hook. A stoic, however, immediately applies the uh, dichotomy of control. They'd analyze the situation a little like this: my work and my schedule are things that I choose, so they're within my control. However, my loved one's feelings of being uncared for and their opinion that my work is excessive are entirely outside of my control. Now, those belong to them. My responsibility isn't control their emotions. I'm not supposed to do that, but to examine my own actions and intentions. So, am I acting according to my values? Am I balancing my duties and responsibilities? That's something that you have to check. As Epictetus taught, if you suppose that only to be your own, which is your own, yeah, that's exactly what he said. I'm quoting him. If you suppose that only to be your own, which is your own, and what belongs to others, such as it really is, then no one will ever compel you or restrain you. Because accepting that your loved one's emotional state is their own. You aren't being callous. You are being precise. You're refusing to be compelled by a feeling that isn't yours to manage. You can still have empathy. You can say, I'm sorry to feel sorry that you feel that way. Right. Or you can tell the truth because I'm not sorry that you feel that way. I understand how you feel. Right. We can talk about how we can find a better balance where you don't feel this way without me having to abandon my responsibilities, my duties, or my passions and dreams. But in this situation, you're not accepting blame for their feelings, right? You are acknowledging what they're saying and opening a dialogue from a position of stability, not guilt. Uh, how you view yourself, how I view you, and how the world views you. Well, um, that's a good philosophy, but it's more so to the magnitude of I can only control how I view myself. I can't control how you view me, and I can't control how the world views me. I can change the way I would prefer the world to view me by changing the way I carry myself, but I cannot impact the world's choice of me because if I decided that I wanted to change my suit, or if I decided that I wanted to put on something else, I can look differently, but that does not mean that you are going to look at me the way I want you to look at me. I do know that if you look at me a certain way, you're going to look at me that way, and I'm going to understand that that's how you see me. But that does not mean that that's who I am. That's just how you identify me. So if my self esteem is about how I feel about myself, how you identify me does not identify me. There's a difference between ascribed and acclaimed. What society puts on you is ascribed, and what you claim is how you identify yourself. A little bit different. I'm sorry you fell. I'm sorry you fall down and fall into the berry bush, but it still was funny. Well, again, yeah, you could do that. That's very good. You could do that. I'm gonna be real. I'm not sorry that you fell. I see that you fell, and I started laughing, and I can't stop laughing at that you just busted your behind. But I understand that you're embarrassed, and I understand that you might even be hurt. After I finish laughing, I'm gonna try to help you up. Give me 5 more minutes. Some people are gonna think, "Oh yeah, that's heartless." Not really. The manipulator's power collapses when you refuse to take ownership of what isn't your responsibility. They might escalate saying, "So you're saying you don't care how I feel, right?" Again, applying the principle. Their interpretation of your words is not in your control. Your commitment to responding calmly and rationally is in line with your control. So you would be able to reply to something like that, like, I do care about your feelings, but I can't control them. What I can do is listen and explain my perspectives honestly. Like when you explained them falling in the bush and busting their ass. Hey, I'm explaining my position honestly. You're staying anchored to what is yours, which is your actions, your intentions, and your calm responses. or reasonably less tempered responses, because a lot of times this might happen in the heat of frustration. This is the first and most critical step to becoming immune to manipulation. You stop playing their game of emotional hot potato and instead hold firmly what is truly yours and your responsibility. Now, the second secret is the ultimate weapon against emotional hijacking, the Stoic pause. Manipulators rely on your immediate, unthinking emotional reaction. They create a stimulus, a loaded comment, a guilt trip, or an accusation, and they expect a predictable response. Fear, defensiveness, anger, or just giving in are the reactions that tell them that their tactics are working. The Stoic pause is the conscious act of creating a space between their stimulus and your responses. And in that space, you reclaim your freedom. Yes, they feed off of your emotions. They feed off your emotions. If they get what they're looking for from you, they feed off of that. A lot of times when we have some of the trolls that come into the channel and try to tee off with an argument, I do enjoy getting into some of those little debates with them. But a lot of times I completely derail the conversation and just block them off of the thing because they're not even talking about what's on the show, and it's just hate speech. And the fact is that they're enjoying the attention that they're getting while we're having that debate or that discussion because that's what they were looking for when they started making the comments that they made. If they can ruin the show for everybody else and try to stay into a debate, then everything we were talking about no longer exists on a show, and then everything that everybody came for would cause not being here anymore would cause everybody to leave. By the time the discussion is over, everybody who was enjoying the show then got off. That would be the goal of a troll to come in and negatively impose themselves in the comment section of any live podcast. Recognizing that as the host of the podcast, got to pay more attention to the negative comments and remove them so that those negative comments do not distract the show or the comment section from what the show's supposed to be about because those people feed off of preferably negative emotions. Now, this idea was famously captured by the neurologist and psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, who, drawing on themes that echo Stoic thought, observe that between stimulus and response, there is, in fact, a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. Instead of an immediate rebuttal, we watch a lot of anime, we watch a lot of cartoons, we watch a lot of sitcoms, and the back and forth action of the players is that are in the show is what makes it funny. Somebody says something and somebody has a witty retort immediately after. Might have three or four different people having witty comments back and forth, and we subconsciously develop this mentality that we're supposed to have a snappy comeback when somebody's talking, we're not listening. We're trying to throw in a snappy comeback. We're trying to throw in a snazzy spotlight statement so that we can get the spotlight in the conversation, even if it's for a few seconds. That reaction is what manipulators feed off of because you're not thinking, you're reacting. So, in our responses lies our growth and our freedom. The manipulator's goal is to collapse that space, to make you react instantaneously on pure impulse. The Stoics' goal is to widen it, to live in it, and to make a deliberate choice from within that space. So here's how it would work: a colleague publicly questions your work in a meeting, implying you were lazy. That immediate hot reaction is to feel defensive and embarrassed. The impulse is to jump into a detailed, flustered defense or to snap back with a counter accusation. This might be exactly what the manipulator is hoping for, as it makes you look rattled and emotional. Instead, you deploy the stoic pause. In that split second, you take a quiet internal step back. You make that a slow breath that's being taken during this moment, and you don't rush to speak. In this newly created gap, you ask yourself a few questions from the Stoic toolkit. First question you want to ask yourself is what actually is happening here? Strip the event of its emotional charge. The colleague voiced a criticism of my work in front of others. State it like a neutral observation from a third person's perspective. This gets rid of the story of I'm being attacked or I'm being humiliated, right? Second, what's the control? You need to know what is in my control and what isn't in my control because my colleague's opinion, their reason for saying it, and what others in the room think are not in my control. My emotional response, my interpretation, and how I choose to reply are entirely in my control. So, what story am I telling? What story am I telling myself? Am I telling myself this is a catastrophe that my reputation is ruined? Or can I choose a different story? This is a chance to show my professionalism. You recognize that the suffering isn't from their words, but from the catastrophic story that you're about to attach to them. Completely different. And then fourth, what do what do my values require of me? Does my values of professional integrity require a screaming match? No, it requires a calm, clear, and factual response. First step is to realize he's doing it. Actually, first step is for you to recognize what you're involved in, what he or she is doing, what I'm doing, what is being done in my presence. It doesn't matter who's doing it. What is happening right now? How does it impact me? And then how much of it do I control? That's what you need to so what's happening is what you need to understand first and then rationalize how it impacts you and how much of that can you control. Then I start laughing at him because I know what he's going to do. Well, not really. Okay, that is a meaningful approach. But if somebody makes a negative comment and then you start laughing, you acknowledged the comment. Have you ever heard of that phrase? I'm not going to dignify that with a response. I mean, saying that phrase is a more intellectual way of saying that you're too stupid for me to respond to. But ultimately, you're identifying the fact that you refuse to go any further with addressing their comment because you don't want to put any effort into validating whether it's false or not. See what I'm saying? So, whether you laugh, whether you cry, whether you flip the table in anger, you reacted to the comment, which validates it. Retaining silence to the comment does not validate it. It gives you time to think about what you should and should not do here and how this will impact you and what all can you control in this. And then what are you going to say within your control, if anything, to respond to that? At my age, I don't need to validate anything, which means that you don't need to say anything to somebody's comment. The worst insult that can be told to you, the reaction to it would be completely ignoring it because In reacting to it, you're validating it. Because see, so when we talk about validation, men believe validation is me being praised for what's going on in my life, and that's not what we're talking about here. When we're talking about validating it, it is you providing acknowledgement to someone or something else because it exists. And I'm saying that at your age, because you don't need to validate anything, if what's happening in front of you does not impact you at all, you don't validate it by reacting to it. Laughing at it is reacting to it. If it doesn't phase you, you don't react to it. That's the difference. If it impacts you, whether it makes you happy or makes you sad, it impacted you. And when you react to it, you validate it. Exactly, taking control of your actions. So even if you want to laugh to it because it's something funny, like for example, you're in a business meeting and somebody says something and then the boss slaps the taste out of somebody else's mouth and you want to just bust out laughing, you might pause for a moment and think about, should I laugh at this? Some people might just bust out laughing because he got the taste slapped out of his mouth, but immediate reaction was the intent when the boss deliberately humiliated the employee in front of the rest of the staff. So you have to take control of your own actions. Now, after this lightning fast internal check in, which only takes a few seconds a lot of times, your response is no longer a reaction, it's a choice. You might say calmly, thank you for bringing that up. The data you're referring to was preliminary, and I can walk you through the final figures after the meeting and clarify the process. You haven't gotten defensive. You're actually not even disputing their claim. You're letting them know that you don't have the full story without telling them you don't have the full story. You haven't attacked and you don't have to defend. You've kept your composure, acknowledged their point without validating the insult, and taking control of the next step, which is we can continue this conversation after the meeting. You've shown yourself to be unflappable. And this pause is going to be your sanctuary. It's where you go from being a puppet to being a person who chooses how to act. You ever start laughing in church? When I was a child, yes. As an adult, no. I don't find anything in church humorous. Not because I have respect for the church, because by far, that's not the case. I do not start laughing in church. One, because of sleep. uh, the second thing is because you have what we call class clowns, people who deliberately do things to get that attention. They want that laugh. So, because they're in a place that this behavior doesn't belong and they perform that behavior, in that moment, I'm not going to laugh at them. I'm going to look at them primarily with pity and disappointment. Now, when I get back to the car, and I call my homeboy, I'm gonna be laughing on the phone, telling him about the stupid shit that happened in church today. Yes, sir. Attention seekers are wild. They come in all the attention seekers come in many different ways. In person, you had when we were in school, we had the class bully that would shoot spitballs at you, throw paper at the back of your head, make absurd comments when a teacher was doing question and answer time during class. We had the heckler. We can't go to any type of As adults, we can't go to any type of event where the performer interacts with the crowd without some jackass in the crowd heckling the performer. We get it at comedy shows. We everywhere we call ourselves trying to go somewhere and enjoy ourselves. Someone who's not enjoying themselves will heckle the rest of the show, ruining it for everyone else. And these are attention seekers. We also have attention seekers in our families where they're always calling when they're in desperate situations. They put themselves in that situation. Then they call for us to bail them out because they're looking for attention. We have them in our relationships. Sometimes it's psychological and emotional manipulation. Sometimes that's the only way that they get validation is by calling and texting you and getting you to respond and react to them. You get it on social media when we're in a live podcast and they dive into the podcast and say stuff to get your attention. They do things in the comment section to make the host stop talking and do something about their behavior. Even if it's so much as I stop mid sentence and focus on blocking the person, they're going to get a kick out of the fact that I blocked them because they wanted a reaction, any kind of reaction. Sometimes people who do not get any attention in their life will take negative attention over positive attention. And before they jump into a conversation and be a positive influence on that conversation to receive positive praise, they will make it easy and make an ass out of themselves so that they can accept that rejection as a form of validation. But it's also a form of complex PTSD because they're only acting like this because they feel rejected in the first place. So they're going to forcibly have people reject them so that uh, they can say, "See, I get rejected everywhere I go," right? Which puts them in a position where tighten up, Michael. They put, then they put themselves in a position where no one ever wants to engage them because they're always doing something inappropriate. So it's a self fulfilling prophecy. Everyone always rejects me, so I'm going to act an ass to get rejected so that everybody's always rejecting me. See, I told you so. That type of behavior is self destructive. If they're doing something to be rejected, I'm not even going to acknowledge it most of the time because, truthfully, that's what they wanted. They wanted to be kicked out of the room. No, you're more than willing to be here. Just be appropriate about it, right? Now, the third secret is fundamentally changing your relationship with your own feelings. A common myth about Stoicism is that it's about suppressing emotion. That's not the truth. It couldn't be more wrong because Stoicism doesn't ask you to feel nothing, it asks you to not be a slave to what you feel. The secret is to observe your emotions like clouds passing in the sky. You acknowledge your feelings, you see them, but you do not become them. You understand that they're temporary events, not your whole identity. For a Stoic, emotions are signals, not commands. Manipulators, they're masters at weaponizing your feelings against you. They know a surge of guilt can make you say yes when you meant no. The puppy dog eyes, the please, the begging, they'll torment you with it, repetitively asking you to make you mad so that you will agree just to make them stop. If you love me, you would. And look, hey, honest to God, ladies, y'all have experienced this a lot of times with guys of first handful of dates. Things that you normally would not do. The first boyfriend talked you into it because he kept making it a thing until you caved. It happens. It's not just one side doing it. It happens all over the place. They know that a spike in fear can make you stay silent when you should speak up. And ironically, a manipulator would try to take your uh, silent pause to gather your thoughts as a sign of weakness until you respond. But they know A rush of pride from flattery can make you agree to something unfair when they will boost up your ego and talk highly about you. I talk shit about somebody. The outcome is going to be the outcome, but they rely on you obeying your emotions without question instead of following your logical and rational thoughts. He said it's easier to flow with the river versus swimming against the current. You're right. But what if you just got pushed into a river of negativity? Is it easier to flow with the river or is it better to get out of the current? And that's the whole point to get into the Stoicism and start changing the way you do things. Special shout out to Bra Logic. You late, bro. You were supposed to buy oil 5 days ago when they abducted that man and took over Venezuela. So I mean, you late. Yeah, you late. Look, he putting it in there. He's you late. We were talking about that. Dylan was talking about that on. We covered that on Monday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday. We've been talking about that. You should have been came through. That's probably the first time that you came and brought some factual information, but you brought it late. But I'm glad that you was staying up with the times. Yeah, you should have been bought the oil. Uh, but I have Exxon, Shell, and Chevron in my core satellite portfolio. So I mean, since we're getting it for free now, gas is going down. Y'all should have been buying oil in December when gas was $2 a barrel or $2 a gallon at the gas pump. You know when to buy oil. You buy the stock when the oil is when the gas prices are cheap. You buy into your oil stocks. When the gas prices go up, that's if you're going to sell it. That's when you do it because that's when you're going to get a return on your investment because the oil prices went up when the stock prices go up. Watch what I tell you because gas prices go down when people don't travel as much and the military ain't active as much. And when there's less users, there's more supply and low demand, and the price goes down, and so does the stock market. If you buy in at that moment, when people start getting more active, people start traveling more, the military starts being more active, the gas prices start going back up, and so will that stock. Just think of all the Chinese contracts with Venezuela, they have no value. Oh no, those Chinese contracts are with America because they had that. I just told y'all that. What was it? Japan and China had the deal with the U.S. about 3 weeks ago with the tariffs and the investments that was going to be going into big business. So you do realize that since China and Japan are in a direct contract with the United States, at least for the next 12 months, anything that the U.S. does to Venezuela that can benefit China, guess what? That contract just gets redirected to the United States since the U.S. controls the land. It's just something different. I'm still holding gold. You should still hold gold for another 25 years. Now, the Stoic practice is a treat your emotions as data scenario, not as directors. So when a manipulator tries to make you feel guilty, the feeling of guilt will still show, right? It's a natural response. The untrained reaction is to immediately believe that guilt, though. I feel guilty, therefore I am guilty. I must have done something wrong. All men have this train of thought. This judge, and then again, the first thing we do is immediately apologize, which is why I'm sorry for something I did not do, is the normal reaction to what people do in normal communication. Even when you said earlier, I'm sorry that you fell, I didn't push you. See, remember this statement right here? I'm sorry you fell down. You fell. I didn't push you. I didn't trip you. So why am I sorry? I don't give a fuck if you fall because I'm not responsible for that. The Stoic mentality would be that I can only control the fact that I didn't fall and I didn't deliberately or accidentally cause you to fall. And as a result, my apologies should be reserved for my actions that are inside of my control that have an outcome that I did not intend, not an outcome that I deliberately try to make happen. So if I pushed you and you fell, I'm not sorry about that. I pushed you. If I tripped you and you fell, I'm not sorry about that. I tripped you. But if we bumped into one another and that was not my intention and you fell, then oops, my bad. Big difference. But this judgment is what gives a manipulator their power. When people say things that, like for example, you might make a comment about how somebody's parent might be proud of them. Your mom would be so proud, and then they respond with, "My mom's dead," and then your immediate manipulated action would be, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know." Who gives a fuck if your mom's dead? I didn't kill her. What? Why am I apologizing for something that probably happened years ago that I was not even involved in? Oh, is like the only reaction you're going to get out of me. Oh, your mother's dead? Well, I can only assume that she will be proud of you from beyond the grave. I am not throwing out an apology for that. Exactly. She is dead. That is not, I'm not apologizing for that. I was not involved in that. Manipulative behavior is not always intentional. We have social cues in multiple different countries that are commonly used, and it is a practice of behavior. It is not something that is sometimes deliberately done. Saying something that forces the I'm sorry, saying something that forces the guilt. You know what I mean? For example, if you're in the bathroom, you didn't lock the door, and then somebody else opens the door and they find you in there. They weren't expecting you in there. If you're in there, the door's supposed to be locked. They didn't know. But your reaction, being startled that they walked in on you, that's going to force them to feel guilt and embarrassment because they walked in on you, and then they are apologizing to you because you didn't prepare yourself for what was about to happen. No. If anything, because you are in there and you know that society dictates that you go in a room and you lock the door so that people know you're in the room and you're not decent. If you were too lazy to lock the door and they let themselves into the room thinking nobody was in the room, the person who's supposed to be apologizing is the person who can control whether or not the door was locked, not the person who didn't know that there was somebody in the room. Why am I apologizing for something that was outside of my control? This is uniformal expectations. The Stoic, however, is going to observe the feelings of guilt as they appear. They hold it at a mental arm's length and look at it with curiosity. They ask, there's that guilt. Interesting. Where did this come from? Was it triggered by their words? Is this guilt a rational sign that I've violated my own values, or is it an irrational response to their attempt to control me? More often than not, with a manipulator, you'll find the guilt isn't yours. It's an emotional package they tried to hand to you, and you unconsciously took it. By observing it, you realize that you have the choice to hand it back to them. I don't want these gifts. You can tell yourself that I see this feeling of guilt, but I don't agree with its judgment. I haven't done anything. And since I haven't done anything wrong according to my values, this feeling isn't just an echo of their presence, it's something that'll pass as well. So remember to like and subscribe. But you can strengthen this practice through daily exercise. Journaling is a powerful tool. I've talked to you guys about that plenty of time because at the end of each day, If you reflect on any interaction that triggered a strong emotional response, regardless of whether it's positive or negative, if you write down what happened, what you felt, and most importantly, what judgment you personally attached to that feeling, not what they said, not how they reacted and responded to you, how you reacted and responded to the situation. Did you decide that your boss's irritation meant your job was endangered? Or did you judge that a friend's disappointment meant you were a bad friend? By dissecting these automatic judgments, you train your mind to catch them in real time. Shoot, that's a podcaster. We can ask ourselves about those dislikes. Does that dislike mean that I'm not putting out a good show? Actually, not. The truth is, the algorithm doesn't see a reaction as positive or negative. A reaction is a reaction. The difference is that the person that thumbs down the show is less likely to be shown the show a second time. But the fact that the show has a large quantity of people that came to it and a large quantity of people that reacted to it, the algorithm's going to show it to more people. So if I get 1,001 thumbs down, the probably get more people coming back to that show. Uh, algorithm has no emotions, and neither does a manipulating action or behavior. The person performing the action is not performing the action with emotion. They're performing it to trigger your emotion. It's not about them and how they feel. You know how we say, oh, they're putting on a show, they're acting, they're pretending. Oh, always me. That is not how they really feel. Their feelings, their emotions are not involved in this interaction with you. Algorithm is just numbers. Yes. And your emotions that are being triggered are just temporary. Mindfulness is going to be another key because in conversations, especially tough ones, try to keep a small part of your awareness focused inward. Notice the subtle tightening in your chest when you're feeling that pressure to perform something that you probably don't want to perform, or the heat in your face when you're feeling angry. Just notice these sensations without immediately reacting to them. If this simple act of observation creates that critical space we just talked about earlier in the show, because you stop being the storm and you become the calm sky watching the storm pass. When you can observe a feeling of guilt or fear without obeying it, the manipulator loses their most powerful weapon. The fourth secret strikes at the very root of your vulnerability, the source of your worth. Manipulators are experts at making you believe your value is external and conditional. That's why individual self esteem is based off of what society thinks about them. How? They control you by becoming the gatekeepers of your sense of being good, worthy, or loved. Their tactics put you on an emotional roller coaster of approval and disapproval, where you're constantly working to earn their validations. Even love bombing, showering you with praise, is a manipulative tactic because it sets the stage for them to withdraw that affection as punishment. And this happens a lot in modern relationships. And believe it or not, while men do this, women do this a lot more often than women are willing to admit. Because when a woman is not satisfied with a man's behavior, she will shut down and pull away. No hugs, no kisses, no intimacy of any kind. Shops closed until you do as I say, right? And that is a form of love bombing. She won't talk to you for hours, days, weeks until whatever it was that she wanted to accomplish gets accomplished, specifically by you. The Stoic antidote is to radically shift the source of your self worth from outside to inside. The Stoics taught that the only true good is virtue, living with excellent character, integrity, and rationality. Your worth as a person has nothing to do with whether someone else approves of you, or if they find you attractive, or if they agree with your choices. It's based entirely on your own character and your commitment to acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and self control above all else. And this is something no one can ever give you, and more importantly, something no one can ever take away. It's easier to plant good seeds in a person's mind. Actually, that's a little bit flawed. The reason why people choose manipulation and negative tactics is because it's easier to plant a negative seed in someone else's mind than it is to plant a positive one. And the reason why it's easier to plant a negative seed in someone else's mind than it is to plant a positive one is because everyone carries a level of doubt. Everyone carries a level of pessimism. The lack of optimism over years and years of disappointment, whether it is self failure or failure from the people around you. For anybody who is not living the life that they thought they were going to live 10, 20, 30 years ago, there is enough pessimism in their mentality. It is easier for someone to plant a negative seed in their mind than it is for someone to plant a positive one. That's why it's hard for individuals to come to a podcast like this and find that it is not about negativity. It is about self improvement and self growth. And once they find out about that, then they decide to hang around and learn from it because they've never come across a show that is not about driving the negative. Most podcasts, no matter how much you can learn from it, drive something negative. Better weed your garden. Sometimes you got to slash and burn that garden and start over. There's situations where you just got to start from scratch. When a manipulator says everyone is so disappointed in you, their words are meant to trigger you to fear social rejection and make you question your own goodness. The untrained mind hears this and panics, thinking, "I'm worthless if people aren't if people are going to be disappointed in me." Right? Their self-esteem plummets and they scramble to get that approval back, start becoming more of a people pleaser. The Stoic mind hears the same words and immediately filters them through the lens of internal worth. They would think that other person's disappointment is theirs. That's their opinion. That's external to me and not in my control. Just like half the people that come onto the show and get off might not be interested in it. That's how they feel. It's not about how I enjoy doing what I do. My worth isn't determined by their approval. It is determined by whether I acted in line with my values. Did I act with integrity? Did I make my decisions based on reason? Yes or no? If yes, then their disappointment, while unfortunate, has no bearing on my worth as a person. This doesn't mean that I'm becoming arrogant or dismissive of all the feedback. Is it That's why I come here. Everyone's channel is very negative and racist. I, it's wild that what 60 years ago, racism still exists. 65 years ago, it's being remodeled as social classism, but it's still the same. It's still the same stuff. They're not just going to treat you bad because you got a good tan. They're going to treat you bad because you're poor. They're going to treat you bad because you got a lot of debt, even if you're not poor. You're making good money, but you have more debt than what you got money. They're going to treat you bad if you're not from America. They're going to treat you bad if you are from America and you can't afford to leave America. They're going to treat you bad if you don't do what they expect you to do with your money when it's them expecting you to spend your money on them. Anything that makes one person different from another person collectively can be grouped into, I put it like this, anyone that can be classified as a you people. That divide is through and through this country, which is the reason why a handful of individuals, 501, 502 people run the entire country. You get treated bad if you're broke, and you get treated bad if you're not overly generous, giving away what you've worked for. And you're also treated bad if you're overly generous to certain women that don't want to reciprocate. That's a whole nother dynamic. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So you got to be the master of not just your money. You have to be the master of your emotions because you're spending your money on other people because of how you feel about what they think about your financial status. You buy more stuff to make them feel better about you. Those individuals that throwing money in the air is getting the attention of the people around them so that they can be that big shot at the event that was throwing money around, buying people's attention. You're the guy that's paying for everybody's cover. It's your car everybody's riding in, your gas money. You're paying the fares. You're covering the bar tabs. Your entourage is only there because they're getting it for free from you. If you stop paying, if your car stops running, are they going to continue to be the same entourage? Are they going to have you ride with them and they cover everything for you now? You don't know until you stop. But you don't stop because you're afraid of if you do, that the network that you built up will disappear, which means that you know subconsciously that you have built a empire on sand at the shorefront during high tide. And you're just trying to see how long you can hold this up until it all washes away. The Stoics were clear that we should listen to others and consider their perspectives rationally. But the final verdict on your character comes from you. You are your own judge, not anyone else. He says, you mean George Soros paying people to protect against ICE? The protesters paying. No, actually, I mean more to the magnitude of when MC Hammer had them 500 some people on stage with him during the show. I mean stuff like that. But you do have a point. Marcus Aurelius wrote this himself. What is beautiful in itself. Praise adds nothing to it. If we stop with that right there, I just want to say all of the many times out of a day that all of the many men in the world look at a woman and tell her that she's beautiful, pretty, cute, sexy, attractive, whatever. It technically means nothing. It adds nothing to the beauty. The beauty itself is itself beautiful. The recognition of it provides validation to the person who put in the effort for it, but they are seeking external validation in their own self worth. And a person that gets an abundance of external validation from their own self worth no longer values the validation because they have a surplus of compliments to the magnitude that it starts getting annoying to them. But Marcus constantly reminded himself that a beautiful gem doesn't become less beautiful if no one praises it. Same way a beautiful woman does not become less beautiful if nobody compliments her, nor more beautiful if everyone does. That's right, it builds a heightened level of vanity. Your character is going to be that exact same gem. Your character as a person, who you are, is going to be that exact same gem. Your commitment to being a good, rational, and honorable person is what gives you your value. So, to put this into practice, consciously and repeatedly anchor yourself and your self esteem to your own actions. At the end of the day, instead of asking, did people like me today? You have to ask, did I act with courage today? Was I honest today? Did I treat others fairly, even when I was in a position where that was hard to do? Did I master my impulses? When you get your worth from your own virtuous actions, the manipulator's main tool, granting and withholding approval, becomes useless. They can praise you and you can accept it gracefully without getting hooked. They can criticize you and you can evaluate their words for truth without letting it crush your spirit. You're no longer a performer dancing for their applause. You're the director and the judge of your own life. And the only criticism, the only criterion that matters truly is the quality of your own character. Now, the fifth secret is a surprisingly powerful Stoic tactic, strategic silence. We're going to get into this one again because we live in a world that often sees silence as a weakness or passivity. So if you're in a situation with a heated argument and you stop responding, they feel like you surrendered, like you bowed down. It's perceived as weak. In a confrontation, our instinct is to fill the void, to over explain, to justify, to defend our case until the other person finally gets it. Manipulators love this. Your frantic need to explain gives them tons of information and emotional fuel. They can pick apart your arguments, twist your words, and use your own energy to keep you hooked in their game. Strategic silence is the deliberate choice to say less, not just the modern slang say less. You're literally saying less. It's resisting the urge to fill the space and instead using that space as a tool. And this isn't the silence of submission, it's the silence of power. We're not saying that you're going to just be quiet and walk away. What we're going to say is that you're going to just stop entertaining the conversation. It communicates that you're not flustered, that you're not desperate for their approval, and you will not be baited into an emotional reaction. Imagine a manipulator trying to guilt you. After all I've done for you, you can't even do this one small thing for me. The typical response is a flood of justifications. It's not that I don't want to, it's just that I'm so busy and you don't understand the pressure I'm under. See, you're defending yourself from a position of guilt. It says, Mediations, book 1 to 5, Marcus Aurelius, the world's greatest thinker, Man, and the Social Philosophers. Good books. I'm covering a lot of their topics right now. That's actually very impressive. He did some thorough research and found a lot of some of the, well, not all of it, but a lot of the information that we're going to be touching on. This is actually good work, Michael. Validation. Now, imagine responding with strategic silence. You listen to their statement. You make eye contact. You pause. You simply let their words hang in the air. This silence is deeply uncomfortable for someone expecting a reaction. They've thrown the emotional bait and you've refused to bite. What do they do now? Often the manipulator will get so unraveled, so unnerved by the silence that they start talking again. And this is where they reveal themselves. They might say, "Well, aren't you going to say anything? I guess you just don't care," trying to trigger you. Or they might even start backpedaling, showing the weakness of their own position. Your silence forces them to show their hand. After a deliberate pause, your response can be short and calm. A simple "I hear you" is incredibly powerful. It confirms you've listened, but it does not validate their demand. It gives away nothing. You can follow it with "I need to think about that." And now you've taken back control of the timeline, refusing to be pressured. Silence is always a boundary. When a conversation gets heated or critical or circular, where you guys keep going around and around in circles, revisiting the same situation, but never getting to the point, you have the right to stop participating. Instead of arguing endlessly, you can simply state, "I'm not going to discuss this right now," and then remain silent. This isn't the silent treatment, which is a passive aggressive manipulation in itself. This is an active, stated boundary. You're not punishing them with silence. Completely different. Punishing someone with silence is refusing to acknowledge them in a positive fashion, refusing to engage them in a non conflictual scenario long after the conflict is over, refusing to accept any type of positive connection from them, positive emotional interactions from them, specifically because you're angry, hurts, bitter, or whatever about something that happened before. That is negative silent treatment. That's not what we're talking about. You are in a situation where you're being overly stressed out unnecessarily by a situation that is beyond your control by an individual that won't stop. You will stop yourself because you can control how you participate in an argument. When you two are no longer discussing, when you two are no longer trying to work this out together, when you two are talking over one another, elevating your voices over one another, the neighbors can hear your conversation now, the kids upstairs can hear the conversation now, that it's time to stop. We have both lost our ability to maintain self control in this conversation. And when that happens, when someone's voice echoes off the wall, it is time for me to step out of this conversation. When we go back to using our library voice, then I will decide how I address the conversation. When we're using our outside voice, inside, I am not a part of this conversation. You don't have to tell somebody to lower their tone. You don't have to tell somebody to watch their mouth. You don't have to tell somebody to calm down. All you have to do is make it clear to them that I am not communicating in a conversation where I can hear the echo of the statements being made over what I'm trying to say. Period. And they can keep yelling all day long. I'm not going nowhere. Give me something to drink. I'm gonna sit here and drink my drink. If you smoke, smoke, you smoke, whatever you're gonna do. And let them talk to themselves. Because the clear point was I'm not participating in this style of conversation. You are protecting your own peace by doing this. I would say he's been there before. Thank God I'm human. Everybody's human. Everybody's human. And some people who don't think they're human, everybody's human. And we've all been there before, at least once. We've been there when we were kids. That's why we can resonate with it when we're adults. We've been there with our family members, which is why we can recognize it in our relationships. And the older we get, the more we learn how to handle it. But the fact is that we have to maintain our own self dignity and say, look, I am not going to be shouting at the top of my voice at you. So I will not allow you to be in a conversation with me yelling at the top of your voice at me. I'm going to protect my voice by stopping the conversation. I'm going to control what I can control because I can't stop you. I can't do anything to you. But what I can do is not allow myself to communicate with you while you're behaving like that. Practicing strategic silence feels unnatural at first. The urge to justify yourself is highly strong. So you got to start small. In your next low stakes disagreement, try pausing for 3 extra seconds before you reply. Notice how it changes the dynamic. Notice how it makes you feel more grounded. Silence isn't emptiness, it's a space you claim for yourself, a space to think, observe, and choose your responses from a position of unshakable calm. I actually had a conversation with somebody and they were trying to talk to me in a negative fashion just yesterday, now that I think about it. And during this conversation, they tried to tell me, well, if you don't like it, you can go talk to so and so. And then I paused. I stopped and I thought about it. And then I came back and I said, well, hold up. Uh, since I understand my position in this scenario, I'm going to make it clear to you that I am not going to allow you, I am not going to give you the authorization to do what it is that you are trying to do. So now you have my written denial towards your actions. If you don't like my position, now it is your responsibility to go talk to whoever it is you need to ask them what is your next move going to be. Because I know what my next move is going to be, and it's not going to favor your outcome. After that conversation, super polite, changed the whole conversation. Everything became positive. We're almost like buddies now. All I had to do was stand my ground and make it clear that I am not going to agree to your position. And now that you know that, you need to decide your reaction to my declarations. Straight up. It's the quiet refusal to play their game. Now, we're halfway through. We're going through our 10 secrets, and you're going to learn how to build a whole new foundation for your inner life. Now, I want you guys to keep going. I love the way Michael's participating, but I love to hear a lot of the rest of y'all that's coming through here. Which of these secrets is hitting home for you guys uh, for the most part? Let me know in the comment section, along with Michael, which tactic that you're most excited to try, and make sure that you can learn from each other in these experiences by us having these conversations in the comment section. He says, when your emotions are overtaken by your rational thoughts. Yes. Actually, when that happens, it actually derails your positive outcome for the situation. So when you have a goal, let's say for example, let's use a simple example. You know that if you're sharing a car with your partner and your partner uses the car and you bring the car back and they don't put gas in the car. You're in a situation where you're in a situation where you're communicating with your partner how the phone, not the phone, the car is not with enough gas in it, which negatively impacts you. In that conversation, you're talking about everything except for the car having gas in it. You make it clear that you're not going to continue to entertain the conversation and you remove yourself out of the conversation. The goal was to have your partner start putting forth effort to put gas in the car. If the conversation is doing everything but achieving that goal, you have failed in your efforts, and now all you're doing is having unnecessary arguments. If you started this with the complaint that there isn't enough gas in the car and you end this conversation by apologizing for bringing up your concerns, you failed again. Okay. So now the moment is that you have made it a point to withdraw from the conversation, but we will readdress the car another time. Now, subconsciously, I'm going to hold on to these keys until I get what I'm looking for. So, you want to use the car? We're going to have to talk about this now that you want to use the car. Because when you didn't need the car, we wasn't on the same page. But now that you need this car, we need to talk about this. They're they have to give you their undivided attention because otherwise they're not going to get the car. Your expectations are fill it up before you bring it back. Not top it off because I topped it off could be a complete lie. Fill it up before you bring it back. Every time it's sitting in the yard, it should have the same full tank of gas in it that it had when you left. Just like when you return a rental car, you return it on a full tank, you return this car on a full tank, or you never drive it again. I'm not arguing about it. That's how we address the situation. We tried negotiating before, negotiation didn't work. Now we're just dropping the hammer. He said, were you on the phone? No, I wasn't on the phone. I'll pour myself some sippy sip sip. A pillow? Nope, not a pillow. Uh, Never end a good time with a negative statement. You know how funny it is that with manipulators that they tend to negatively impact a good time towards the end of a good time with a negative situation to prevent the situation from carrying into intimacy or something to that effect later in the evening or going into the night, to keep distance between the two of you after you finish spending money on them and they've had a good time and everything like that. Then an argument starts on the ride home, and now y'all don't want to look at one another. Y'all had the whole day together, was fantastic, and now you before you get back to the house, now you're on different corners of the house. You got to pay attention. Now, the sixth secret is a verbal technique that shifts the focus of a manipulative conversation from the emotional chaos they want to create to the tactical reality of what they're doing. Manipulators love making the conversation about your supposed flaws. They make you feel guilty, and then the argument is about why you are being so selfish. They are gaslighting you. Fellas, we experience this all the time. And then the argument becomes about why you are so crazy or sensitive or non masculine. This is what we experience. You end up getting lost defending your feelings, defending your sanity, defending your masculinity, which is exactly where they want you. Once they've derailed the primary topic, you're no longer, the spotlight's no longer on them because the primary topic was they fucked up. If you're talking about everything except for they fucked up, they're fine with it. They don't care what you're talking about, you know? So the Stoic technique is to ignore the emotional bait and instead calmly add objectively name the game that they're playing. So you want to calmly and objectively name the game that they're playing. You're not angrily accusing them. You are holding up a mirror to their tactics, showing them that you see exactly what they're doing. And this is an act of labeling, often making the manipulation collapse under the weight of being exposed. Let's look at a few examples of this. One tactic, a guilt trip. They say, I can't believe you're going out with friends when you know I've had a hard week. I guess I'll just stay here alone. Somebody told me that. And my response is, I guess you will. Walk out the door. But the emotional bait is thick here because a trap is to argue about whether you're selfish or not. I'm not selfish. I do care, right? That's going to be the trap. The Stoic response is naming the game. You're going to respond to that calmly. It sounds like you're trying to make me feel guilty about my plans. See how that shifts? The conversation is no longer about your character as an individual, it is about the tactic they just used. Another powerful response is that feels like a guilt trip. And this one is simple. It actually states and labels the package instead of opening it. Another tactic, gaslighting. They do something hurtful, and when you bring it up, they say that never happened. You're being overly emotional and remembering it wrong. You're so dramatic. Now, the goal is to make you doubt your own reality. The Stoic response, name the game. Instead of arguing about what actually did or did not happen, you can simply say, I'm not going to debate my own memory or my feelings. It seems like you're trying to make me doubt what I'm experiencing. Or a more direct approach, it feels like you're trying to change the story of what happened. You're not arguing the facts with someone else are committed to denying them. You're looking at the person that will instead of continuing to try to manipulate you in the situation, they're going to start denying the fact that you caught them manipulating you. But you're describing it in the conversation itself. You're identifying it directly. Here's another tactic, moving the goalposts. You finally do the thing that they asked you for, and they immediately say, well, that's a start. But what you really need to do is, and then they go on this wild tangent. They make sure you can never succeed, keeping you forever striving for their approval. The Stoic response is name the game. Well, I've noticed that each time I met an expectation, you set a new one almost instantaneously. It feels like the goalpost keeps moving. The key to this technique is the tone. It must be delivered with calm observation, not angry accusations, not frustration. Think of yourself as a commentator describing the moves in the game. You aren't getting emotionally invested. You're just showing that you understand the rules and the strategy being used. And this is incredibly disarming because manipulators rely on their tactics being invisible. So when you shine a light on the machinery of their manipulation, it often grinds it to a halt. So you're showing them that you're not just a player in their game, that you're an observer who sees the whole board. Michael said, he said, it changed in the goal line. I hate that. I tell them don't do that again. Man, look, hey, whatever you getting out of me, that's it. I don't give a damn if they want nothing extra. I'm the last of a large number of siblings. And I spent my entire childhood having to get twice as much so that I can have some and everybody else can get some because they want what I got. At the end of the day, the mentality ends up being buy two, three, five of everything that I want. That way, whenever somebody else wants it, there's another one over there. Get that one. This one's mine, right? But no matter how much you do, some people are ungrateful. You've got fathers that are dealing with this right now with child support. You got women that, oh, that $700 a month isn't enough. What about my nails? What about my car? What about my this? What about my that? And I've been having so many people talk to me since we did that dash show. And I'm like, bro, straight up, first of all, in your household, if you would have paid for that, if the child wasn't there, you're paying for it while the child's there. I'm only paying for what changes in the household occur because the child's there. So your rent and all that other stuff, that's gonna be there when the child's not there. Your car note, that's gonna be there when the child's not there. Now the medical bills, school supplies, school clothes, that stuff doesn't exist unless the child is there. That's the kind of stuff I'm responsible for. And they argue that no, that he should subsidize her. No, fuck that. You're not making a living off of a dad. If you can't afford the child, give the child to the father. One woman came up and said, well, what if the mom is about to lose her apartment or her house or whatever? Can he, even though he's already paid the child support, can he pay for the house for her? Because if he doesn't pay for the house, then the children will be homeless and living in shelters and stuff. No, the child won't be homeless living in a shelter because if dad has his own place and mom loses her place, custody ends up with dad because mom doesn't have stable housing. So why does dad have to keep mom in a house so that dad's child has a house? If dad has a house, the child can go and stay with dad. Why is dad paying for mom's rent because mom ain't got enough money to pay for her own rent? They keep moving the goalposts. Expectations continues. So if you want a reaction, you may not like the reaction. That's true, but there's also the observation of specifically because you want a reaction, I'm not going to give you one. I'm not going to give you one because some people don't care what kind of reaction they get as long as they get something because they're just looking for interaction. And in those situations, you don't have to be clever about it. You don't have to be clever about it. You can specifically just tell them it in my observation, it looks to me like you're just trying to be negative on purpose. Like, what is the ultimate goal that you have about this? How you doing, Eric? It's been a while. Fries, what's up, man? We're doing all right. We're still running a good running. Negative or positive, yeah. Some people will take negative or positive reactions. They're perfectly fine with the negative reaction. There's some people that will prefer a crowd of boos over putting in the extra effort for a crowd of cheers. Why is that? Because when you walked in the room, everybody's talking about you. When you walk out the room, everybody's still talking about you. Doesn't matter what they're saying. The fact is that the whole room is talking about you. And the truth of the matter is that negative attention is more powerful than positive attention because you might tell one person something positive, but you'll tend to tell 10, 100, 1,000 people something negative. And each one of those people will tell 10, 100, 1,000 more people about something negative. So you will become more popular being negative than when you would be being positive because more people will know you of being an asshole than the people who know you being positive. Take, for example, the name Karen. It has been identified in modern society as a negative person. That one woman was so bad that her name has trended as a negative person for years now. But not one of us can think of a name that strategically and specifically identifies positivity. because no one has ever been that good that their name means positivity. But Karen clearly is socially accepted as a negative individual that is superimposing themselves in a situation where they ultimately do not belong. And not one person can tell me that that's not true. Isn't that terrible? Been busy with the grind at work and getting busy in the stock market. Okay, so we just sold two harbors last week, and then we bought into um global net lease for Monday. We're going to be selling global net lease, and then we're going into stag. And then we're going to come out of stag, and I'm going to be having y'all by the end of next week. The other stocks we're going to be going into between the 20th and the 25th. So you got to swing back through and at least watch the shows on the back end, so that you can see which ones we've got coming up with our investment opportunities. But I do have the list and the membership of which stocks that we're supposed to be going into every month. So you can always just go back and check the membership and see all the stocks and dividend rotation strategy. He said, now you're starting to sound like a Jimmy. Ah. They can keep that popularity. Tell me about it, Steve. I would prefer to be unknown than to be known for something negative. Just being real. Now, the seventh secret is about redefining what a boundary is. And for many of us, setting a boundary feels like an act of aggression. It comes with anxiety, guilt, and a long, pleading explanation for why it is necessary. My non-negotiable expectations for behavior are not that serious. The title is a lot longer than the expectation. So we're on non-negotiable expectations for behavior, right? We can shorten that to non-negotiables. Realizing these long pleadings, that's a mistake. An emotional apologetic boundary isn't a boundary, it's a negotiation. A manipulators love to negotiate. They see your guilt and rambling justification as an investigation to debate, question, and ultimately tear down all of your limits. A stoic boundary is different. It's not an emotional plea. It's a calm, firm, unemotionally statement of fact about what you will or will not do, what you will and will not accept. It's rooted. Turn to page 286. Nah, we're not on two. We're actually on page 74 out of 120. So while we do have a little bit more to go, I do a lot of research on this. Now, this is going to be rooted in the dichotomy of control, what we talked about at the top of the first hour. You can't control if someone tries to cross your boundaries, but you can only control whether you build it and uphold it. I'll put that up there. So I'm going to tell you this one more time. You cannot control if someone tries to cross your boundaries, but you can control whether you build it and uphold it. The boundary is a statement about your actions, not a demand on theirs. So let's break down a strong Stoic boundary. First, it's clear and simple. It avoids vague language. I need you to respect me more, right? Is a poor boundary. It's undefined. I will not continue this conversation if you are raising your voice, is a strong, non negotiable expectation for behavior. It's specific and it is tied to an action you will take. He said, I picked some USAR and TMQ. Good job. Good job. Stand your ground. Damn right. You have to be extra positive when you stand your ground. Second, it is stated without justification or apology because why am I apologizing for something that I didn't do wrong? The power is in its simplicity. When you add a long explanation as to why you want this done, you're signaling the boundary is up for debate. Instead of saying, I can't lend you money anymore because I'm really struggling and I have to save for this bill and I feel so guilty saying no, but I just can't, you state it as a fact. I'm not able to lend you any money, period. Or you can be a little bit more severe. I am just not going to lend you any more money. If they push back, which a lot of manipulators will, almost always do. Why not? What's wrong? You don't need to take that bait. You can simply repeat the boundary calmly. As I said, I am not able to do that, or I am not going to do that. Or you can use that strategic silence where you're just not going to answer that follow up rebuttal. You've given your answer already. You said no. The decision is made. You're not going to repeat yourself on it. You're not required an entire legal defense of your position. Here's some examples of strong Stoic boundaries. I don't discuss my personal life at work. I'm not going to make a decision on this right now while I feel pressure. I will leave the room if the insults start. I make my own career decisions. And fellas, y'all can imagine each one of these conversations with your spouse. That's terrible. It happens everywhere, though. You can have these conversations with your mom. You can have these conversations with a friend or family member. You can have these conversations with a partner. You know, this happens. The third and most critical, you must be prepared to act on exactly what you said you're going to do or whatever you said you're not going to allow. Because a non negotiable expectation without a consequence is just a bluff. If you say, I will leave if you continue to assault me, and then they start assaulting you and you stay, you've taught them that your words mean nothing. If you say, I'm leaving if you start insulting me, the first time they accidentally throw an insult in your general direction, even if it wasn't at you, just get stuff and go. And no matter what they do to plead as you walk out of the door, you don't because you said you're not putting up with this. If you go back, you're going back with the full understanding that they will not do that again, knowing that if it happens again, regardless of what's invested in it, it's done. Zero tolerance to repetitive behavior. Your action is the non negotiable expectation. When you calmly get up and walk out as you said you would, as promised, you aren't being dramatic. You're gonna walk out in silence. You're not, oh fuck this, I'm out. No, you said that if they keep doing, you will respond with, and in that moment, like Michael says, stand your ground, up and out. If they don't respect it, that's on them. If you don't do anything about it, that's on you. Now, this is the Stoic principle of living in line with reality. You state the truth. I will not tolerate this. And then your actions align perfectly with that truth. It's hard because we're conditioned to prioritize keeping the peace and managing other people's feelings. But from a Stoic perspective, your real responsibility is to your own integrity. A boundary is an act of self respect. It is you that is calmly telling the world, this is where I begin and end with everything that you do. Now, the eighth secret is a communication tool that flips the script on the manipulator. As we've seen, manipulators thrive when you're on the defensive. They make an unreasonable demand, and you spend all your energy explaining and defending your position. This dynamic puts them in the powerful position of judge and you in the weak position of the defendant. Disarming questions reverse this flow of power. Instead of defending yourself, you use sort of simple, genuinely curious questions that puts the burden of justification back on the manipulator. These aren't aggressive, gotcha questions. They calmly inquire that invite the other person to explain the logic and fairness of their position. Now, you kind of see this ass backwards behavior that's supposed to reflect this type of method with some of those other podcasts where they're debating with women on the women's logic because they ask gotcha questions instead of inquiring on the original statement. And I don't believe that that's an appropriate approach. You shouldn't ask them gotcha questions. You know, their logic is their logic, but almost like a psychotherapist, how about you make your statement make sense to me? Because it doesn't make sense to me. What they do is they say, well, I disagree. Let me give you an analogy that reflects your statement. And then if that analogy makes no sense, by contrast, how does your statement make sense? Because it's based off of the same dynamic. That's how they approach it, not the same. The secret is that most manipulative tactics have no logical or fair foundation. And these questions gently expose that fact without you having to become an accuser. Let's see this action. The tactic, an unreasonable demand. So your boss asks you to stay late for the third night in a row to finish something that isn't urgent. They expect either tired compliance or a flustered apology. The Stoic response, a disarming question. Instead of saying, I can't, I'm exhausted, you ask calmly the clarifying question. You might ask something like, can you help me understand the urgency of this compared to our other priorities for the week? Or what's the specific outcome you're looking for by having this done tonight rather than tomorrow morning? These questions are not insubordinate, they're professional. They force your boss to explain their reasoning, and in doing so, they might realize the request is, in fact, unreasonable. Here's another tactic, a vague accusation. A partner says, you're just so distant lately. This is a classic trap. It's a vague and emotional design to make you scramble for examples of how you haven't been distant, right? The Stoic response, a disarming question. Resist the urge to deny it. Instead, ask for specifics in a natural tone. When you say distant, what specific action are you referring to? Or can you give me an example from this week when you felt that way? This moves the conversation from a vague complaint to a concrete discussion, which is far more productive and much harder to manipulate. Another tactic, social pressure. Everyone else is chipping in $200 for this gift. You wouldn't want to be the only one who doesn't, would you? The Stoic response, a disarming question. Instead of defending your finances, you can flip the frame by asking, what would you do in my situation given my budget? Or a more direct but still calm question, how is this a fair question to make of anyone, regardless of their financial situation? Because think about how much money is this fucking gift for this one individual if everybody's putting in $200. Don't you think if there's more than two people putting in $200 that whatever the gift is too damn expensive in the first place? You're not saying no directly. You're inviting them into a rational discussion about fairness, which is uncomfortable ground for someone relying on peer pressure. If they try to dismiss it, they're showing you that they don't have a logical rationale for it. The power of these questions is that they force the manipulator to use their rational mind rather than just emotional leverage. Many manipulative statements are designed to bypass logic completely. When you gently reintroduce the expectations of reason and fairness, their strategy often falls apart. You aren't arguing, you are simply asking for clarity. You're turning on a light in a room that needs darkness to be effective. The ninth secret out of 10, we've only got 10, so we don't have that much more to go. The ninth secret sounds strange, but it's one of the most powerful psychological tools in the Stoic arsenal, the practice of premeditatio, moralio. Whew. I'm going to put that in the comment section so y'all can see. Premeditatio malerum. That's like ancient language. I put it in there twice. Hold on. There it is. Pre, if you're looking at it by 16 by 9, and if you're looking at it by 9 by 16, pre meditatio melarum, or negative visualization. This is a practice of calmly and periodically thinking about the loss of things you value. This isn't about being morbid or dwelling on doom and gloom. It's a strategic exercise to reduce your fear and attachment. The primary levers that manipulators pull to control you are that fear, right? Much of the manipulator's power comes from the threats, both spoken and unspoken. So if you leave me, you'll be alone forever. If you don't do this, you'll lose your job. If you speak up, everyone will turn against you. These threats work by targeting your fear of loss. You're afraid of losing a relationship, financial security, or social standings. Your fear makes you comply. Neg- Police use this all the time, making you afraid to go to jail. Even if you know that they don't have a legal reason to arrest you, you know that if they take you unlawfully, you're still going to be inconvenienced for 3 to 5 days, and you don't want your reputation to be tarnished by going to jail for something that you didn't do. So you comply under duress. Negative visualization systematically desensitizes you from those fears. The Stoics, like Seneca, would advise you to take time to imagine what life would be like if those feared events actually happened. What if you did lose that job? You start by imagining the immediate shock and difficulty. You'd feel the anxiety, but then you'd continue the visualization. You'd imagine updating your resumes. You'd picture yourself reaching out to your network. You'd visualize yourself finding a new, maybe even better position. You'd imagine yourself learning and growing from the experience. What if the relationship did end? You'd imagine the initial heartbreak, but then you'd visualize yourself rediscovering your hobbies, strengthening your friendships, enjoying your own company, and eventually maybe even finding a healthier relationship. By mentally rehearsing these worst case scenarios, you do two things. First, you often realize that the catastrophe that you fear is, in fact, survivable. You have resources, resilience, and strength that you haven't tested yet. The imagined event loses its terrifying, monstrous shape and becomes a concrete problem that you can imagine yourself solving. Second, it fosters a deep sense of gratitude for what you have already. After thinking about losing your health, a simple walk outside feels like a gift. After uh, contemplating the loss of a friendship, a simple conversation with that friend becomes more precious. As Seneca noted, this practice helps you to hold on to what is yours, not with anxious fear, but with joyful appreciation, while also being prepared to let it go if you must. Can't afford to pay for it, stop. You're going to go bankrupt trying. So, how does this make you immune to manipulation? Well, when a manipulator threatens you with a loss, their threat lands on a mind that has already made peace with that possibility. Take you to jail. I was waiting on that to happen. I'll break up on you. I'll help you pack. you know, oh, we'll fire you. Give you your uniform back right now. when they say, if you don't do this, I'll leave, the terror is gone. You may not want them to leave, but you no longer fear it with the same paralyzing dread. Your internal response is, I've considered that. I would survive it if you did. Therefore, I will not make this decision out of fear. I will make it based on my values, specifically my values, not the fear of whether or not you stay or not. The manipulator threat, which they thought was a powerful weapon, is revealed to be a dud. So you've robbed them of their power of robbing yourself of your fear. You're no longer clinging desperately to external things for your security. Your security comes from knowing that your inner self, your character, can endure and adapt to whatever threat they're throwing at you, assuming that they're capable of carrying that out. You become, as Marcus Aurelius would say, like the cliff against which the waves crash again and again, but it stands firm and the sea is stilled around it. Wow. Now, we've arrived at the 10th one and the final secret. So, if you've been riding this wave for the last 2 hours, I really appreciate you guys hanging out. The capstone that holds your entire inner fortress together, anchoring yourself to your values. In this heat of a manipulative moment, when emotions are high and your reality is being questioned, it's easy to lose your bearings. The manipulator wants to create a storm of confusion, guilt, and fear that pulls you from your moorings. Your values are your anchor in that storm. When you know with absolute clarity what you stand for, you have an unwavering guide for all your decisions. The Stoics believe the goal of life was to live in accordance with virtue. The four cardinal virtues, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance or self control weren't abstract ideas, they were practical guides. A decision is good not because it feels good or wins approval, but because it's a wise, just, courageous, and self controlled decision. So when you're facing a manipulator, you can use these values as your ultimate filter. Instead of asking what will make them happy or what will avoid conflict, you must ask yourself a different set of questions. What does wisdom require here? Wisdom is seeing the world clearly. Is it wise to believe this person distorted reality? Is it wise to decide based on an emotional impulse? What does justice require here? Justice is fairness to others and to yourself. Is their request of you fair? Am I treating myself with the same respect I offer to a friend or family member or a loved one or a colleague at work? What does courage require here? Courage is an act when you're acting rightly despite fear. Does courage require me to set a boundary even though it's scary? Does it require me to walk away from a toxic situation? What does temperance require here? Because temperance, again, is self control. Does it require me to control my impulse to lash out in anger? Or does it require me to resist the urge for their flattery? Let's apply it. A friend is pressuring you to lie for them. I've been there before. The manipulative appeal is to your loyalty. The internal conflict feels immense, but then you hold the decision up for your values to be evaluated. Is this wise to engage in deceit? No. Is it just to deceive the other party? No. Is it courageous to tell your friend you won't lie for them even if it risks your friendship? Yes. Some people gonna say, "Well, you ain't down for the cause," until they're ratting you out and you're serving hard time for the decisions that they made. You gotta ask yourself, does it require temperance to control your desire to please your friend and avoid conflict? Yes. The answer becomes clear. It might be hard, but it's clear. Your decision is no longer a confused mess of guilt and obligation. It's an act of integrity. Doesn't mean you're not still going to go with the flow and lie for your friend, but it means that you're going to do it knowing that you're going to do it because you want to, not because you have to. Anchoring yourself to your values means that you have to first define them. Take the time when you're calm to write down what you stand for in your business life, in your personal life, your relationships with your family, with your friends, with your neighborhood. Write it down. What does honest mean to you? What does respect mean to you? How does that look? What are your non negotiable expectations for behavior? This becomes your personal constitution. You could print it out in some old English font and paste it up on the walls in your house so that the people that come to your house know what you stand for. When you're clear on your values, you become predictable to yourself and unpredictable to the manipulator. They expect you to be swayed by emotion, but you're guided by principles. They find that their levers of guilt and fear no longer connect to anything inside of you. They aren't being difficult. You're not being consistent with whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish. You're not being cold to them either. You're not allowing them to prevent you from being clear. The manipulator who operates in the gray areas of emotional confusion has no power over someone who lives in the black and white of their own integrity. This is the ultimate freedom. It's the peace that comes from knowing that no matter what happens externally, you have been true to yourself. And that's a very important thing to wrap your mind around. Now, we've journeyed through 10 profound Stoic secrets, each one a tool to reclaim your mind and build an unshakable inner uh, cycle. It all starts with the dichotomy of control, knowing what's yours and what isn't. From there, you can use the Stoic pause to create space for rational choices and learn to observe your emotions without obeying them. You can build your self worth on your own character, not external approvals. And you can use powerful tools like strategic silence, naming the game, and disarming questions to flip the script. You learn to build boundaries as calm statements of fact. Prepare your mind for loss to defang the fear, and finally anchor every decision to your core values. The common thread here is a radical shift in focus. Freedom from manipulation doesn't come from changing the other person, it comes from mastering yourself. The secret isn't a trick to defend or defeat them. The secret is realizing that you are not playing their game anymore. It requires your participation. It requires you to believe you're responsible for their feelings, that your worth is in their hands. This ain't all state. Ain't nobody holding me down but me. The moment you stop participating, the game is over. Who do they fight with if they're the only person in the discussion? This isn't an even easy path for us to do, though, because it takes daily practice and the courage to choose the principled response over the easy one. But with every conscious pause, every boundary upheld, and every decision anchored in virtue, you reinforce the walls of your inner cycle. You become a person whose peace isn't dependent on the world outside, but is generated from the strength and clarity within. That is the promise of Stoicism. That is the secret to the unshakable freedom. Now, if you found this in uh, found the value in this discussion, consider exploring some of the rest of the shows that we have that are practical philosophies to continuing building your inner fortress. And you got to remember that power was always yours now that you know how to use it. I expect to hear back from you guys to let me know what y'all think. Now, tomorrow we're going to be talking about why people fail in their ability to grow from manipulation. Why do we keep falling for the traps? Because not knowing why this doesn't work helps you figure out how to make it work. So, first, we're going to say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you, ladies, to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. And, fellas, I provide you all this information to help y'all become higher value men because when you are capable of finding the things in your life that you wish would change, and you change the things that are inside of your control, then you can navigate around the things that are not inside of your control. This gives you total happiness because you will be effectively applying this in both your personal life as well as your business life. Now, ladies, while this is a male driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can take this information and make yourselves higher value women because it still allows you to utilize this information and make you a better you. Now, uh, I want you guys to stay with us for the rest of the week. Make sure you check in on the membership because we have a lot of things going on in the membership, which is in addition to subscribing to the channel. And we're going to be putting more detailed information in there for you guys. And then, Stephen, I'm going to be providing you with the information I said that I was going to get for you. I was going to be providing that, should be tomorrow because I actually just got the number. They called me. So I was like, sweet. They called me to renew the plan. So I was like, sweet. Now I can give this to Stephen. Uh, so make sure that y'all stay tuned. I want to thank y'all for coming to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. Standing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.